The deep space monitoring station hummed quietly in the darkness of space. Officer Reed's antennae twitched as he watched the sensor displays, his six-fingered hand absently tapping against the control panel. Another quiet shift in the peaceful Stellar Alliance territory was coming to an end. At least, that's what he thought. The first warning came as a slight disturbance in the quantum field sensors. Reed almost missed it, but years of experience had taught him to notice even the smallest anomalies. The disturbance grew stronger, and suddenly all the sensor arrays lit up like a festival display. A massive energy signature tore through the fabric of space itself, and Reed's heart nearly stopped when he saw the readings. Control room, this is Reed. We have an unregistered jump signature in Sector 7. His voice cracked with urgency as he transmitted the alert. The response was immediate. Every screen in the monitoring station shifted to high alert status. Through the station's long-range cameras, they watched as space itself seemed to split open. A massive dark shape emerged from the swirling vortex of hyperspace. The vessel was unlike anything in the Alliance database. Angular, aggressive, bristling with what could only be weapon systems. But it was the energy readings that made Reed's blood run cold. They matched exactly with the legendary descriptions of human warships. Stories of human military might have been passed down through generations. Tales of their incredible technological advances, their fierce dedication to combat, and their ability to fight against impossible odds. Most believed these were just stories to frighten young ones. But now, floating before them in the coldness of space, was living proof. The ship was enormous. Its hull was painted in dark colors with strange markings that the translation software identified as HMS Thunder in the human language. Sensor scans revealed energy readings that defied belief, power outputs that could level entire continents, shield systems that could withstand the fury of a young star, and weapon systems that made the Alliance's most advanced artillery look like children's toys. On the bridge of the Thunder, Captain Gray stood quietly, watching the local star system appear on their main viewport. The jump had been rougher than expected, but his crew handled it with the practiced ease of veterans. They were unaware that their arrival had just sent waves of panic through the local civilization. "Status report," Gray commanded, his voice calm despite the strain of their recent hyperspace journey. His bridge crew worked efficiently, each focusing on their designated tasks. All systems functioning within acceptable parameters, sir. First Officer Rivers reported from her station. The jump drive is cooling down as expected. Local scan shows multiple artificial structures in the system, likely a developed civilization. Gray nodded, studying the sensor data on his command display. They hadn't planned to emerge in an inhabited system, but the instability in their last jump had left them little choice. The ship's engineer had warned him about the growing stress on the drive systems, and Gray had learned long ago to trust his crew's judgment. "Any signs of the anomaly that followed us through the last 3 jumps?" Gray asked, his eyes fixed on the long-range scanner displays. "Negative, sir," Rivers replied. "Whatever it was, we seem to have lost it. At least for now." Back at the Alliance station, chaos erupted as the emergency signals reached nearby worlds. The Alliance Council convened an emergency session, their communications filled with panic and wild speculation. Some advocated for immediate evacuation of the nearby colonies. Others suggested launching a preemptive strike, though none could say if their weapons would even scratch the human vessel's hull. Reed watched as the human ship maintained its position, making no aggressive moves. His years of experience told him something wasn't adding up. If the stories were true, if humans were the warmongering species of legend, why weren't they attacking? Why had they jumped into the system in plain view of a monitoring station? Pirates and raiders normally emerged far from sensors, yet this ship had made no attempt to hide its arrival. As the Alliance leadership argued about their response, Reed couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this situation than met the eye. The human ship hung in space like a dark omen, its presence alone enough to spark fear across the system. But sometimes, Reed reminded himself, Fear came from ignorance rather than genuine threat. He just hoped the Alliance would learn the truth before anyone did something they'd all regret. The Alliance Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as leaders from 12 different species argued about how to handle the human warship. The massive circular room, usually a place of calm debate, now felt like a powder keg ready to explode. Council leader Palmer stood at the center, trying to maintain order as voices rose in panic. "We cannot simply wait for them to attack," shouted one representative, his scaled skin flashing warning colors. "Every moment we delay could mean our destruction." Before Palmer could respond, the chamber fell silent as Officer Reed's voice came through the emergency channel. "Council members, the human vessel is broadcasting a message. They're requesting permission to dock for emergency repairs." The message that followed was unexpected. The human captain's voice was calm and professional, lacking any hint of aggression. "This is Captain Gray of the HMS Thunder. We've sustained damage to our primary drive systems and request temporary docking privileges for repairs. We mean no harm to your people or installations." The council erupted again, this time in confused discussion. Palmer raised a hand for silence. "Officer Reed, what's your assessment? You've been watching them since they arrived." Reed's voice was thoughtful. "They've made no aggressive moves. Their weapon systems remain powered down, and their shields are at minimal strength. If they meant to attack, they're doing it very strangely." In the Thunder's engine room, Chief Engineer Stone wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the damage readouts. The last jump had pushed their ancient systems to the breaking point. Coolant lines were rupturing, and the quantum stability field was fluctuating dangerously. Without repairs, they risked a catastrophic drive failure. "Captain," Stone spoke into his comm, "we need those repairs soon. The containment field won't hold forever, and if it fails..." He left the rest unsaid. Everyone knew what a drive breach could do to the surrounding space. On the bridge, Captain Gray received Stone's report with growing concern. They had been running the Thunder hard for weeks, pushing the old ship beyond its limits. The crew was tired, the ship was failing, and they still didn't know if they'd truly lost their pursuer. "First Officer Rivers," Gray called, "prepare a detailed report of our repair needs. Include only the essential systems. We don't want to appear more threatening than we already do." Rivers nodded, understanding the delicate situation. The Thunder's appearance alone was enough to cause panic. Being honest about their full capabilities would only make things worse. Back in the council chamber, Defense Commander Banks studied the human ship's specifications with growing amazement. Even damage, the vessel's power readings were off the charts. The weapons systems alone could probably destroy half their fleet. Yet here they were, asking politely for help. Council leader Banks spoke up. "I recommend we grant their request." The room fell silent, shocked by the military commander's unexpected position. If they wanted to attack, they wouldn't need deception. That ship could have opened fire the moment it arrived. Instead, they're following diplomatic protocols and asking for assistance. Palmer considered this. The stories of human warfare had terrified their people for generations. But now, faced with actual humans, the reality seemed more complex. Their ship was clearly powerful, yet they approached with respect and apparent honesty. A new message from the Thunder added urgency to their decision. "Alliance Station, we understand your caution, but we must advise that our drive system damage could pose a risk to this sector if left unrepaired. We're willing to accept any safety precautions you deem necessary." Palmer looked around the council chamber, seeing the fear in some faces begin to mix with curiosity. The humans were being remarkably patient, given their situation. Perhaps this was a chance to learn the truth behind the legends. "Take it to a vote," Palmer announced. "Do we offer assistance and possibly make first peaceful contact with humanity, or do we turn them away and risk both a diplomatic incident and a potential drive system disaster in our space?" The vote was close, but in the end, curiosity and compassion won over fear. As Palmer transmitted their acceptance of the Thunder's request, no one in the council chamber could guess how this decision would change their understanding of humanity forever. The Alliance repair dock hummed with activity as teams of engineers approached the massive human warship. The Thunder dwarfed the repair facilities, its dark hull making the surrounding structures look like toys. Engineer teams wearing protective suits moved cautiously, their scanning devices held out before them like shields. Chief Engineer Stone waited at the airlock, watching through the viewport as the alien engineers drew closer. He had stripped his uniform down to his basics, trying to appear less intimidating. The captain's orders were clear: full cooperation and transparency with their hosts. The first team of Alliance engineers entered through the airlock, led by lead engineer Miller. Their eyes widened at the sight of the Thunder's internal systems. The corridor walls were lined with technology that looked both incredibly advanced and strangely ancient at the same time. Worn metal panels bore scratch marks from countless repairs, while pulsing energy conduits spoke of power beyond their understanding. "Welcome aboard the Thunder," Stone said warmly, keeping his hands visible and his tone friendly. "We've got quite a job ahead of us." He gestured to the main engineering bay where the damaged drive systems lay exposed. Miller's team followed Stone, their initial fear giving way to professional curiosity. The drive chamber was massive, far larger than anything in Alliance ships. But what caught their attention wasn't its size. It was its age. The quantum core showed signs of decades, perhaps centuries of use. The technology was incredible, but it was clearly from another era. "This ship," Miller spoke hesitantly, "it's not what we expected. These systems, they're from humanity's golden age of space travel, aren't they?" Stone nodded, running his hand along a worn control panel. "The Thunder is one of the last. Built during the height of human expansion, before we learned the cost of our aggression. Now she serves as both monument and guardian." In the observation room above engineering, Captain Gray met with Council Leader Palmer and Defense Commander Banks. Through the reinforced windows, they watched the mixed team of human and alien engineers begin their work. "You maintain these warships," Palmer said carefully, "yet you claim to have abandoned warfare. Why?" Gray's eyes remained fixed on the repair work below. "To remember, to protect. These ships stand as reminders of what we once were, and what we chose not to become." He turned to face the Alliance leaders. "Humanity walked the path of war once. We built weapons that could shatter worlds, ships that could devastate entire systems. But we saw where that path led." Banks studied the ancient weapon systems displayed on a nearby screen. "These cannons, the power readings are beyond anything we've seen. Yet you haven't fired a shot, even with your ship in danger." "The Thunder's weapons haven't been charged in over 50 years, Gray replied. "We maintain them as a reminder, but they're no longer our purpose. We serve as peacekeepers now, guardians of the spaces between worlds." Below in engineering, the repair work had revealed more surprises. The Alliance engineers discovered that much of the Thunder's supposedly fearsome armament was actually defensive in nature. The massive power systems were designed to protect, to shield, to rescue. The ship was built for war, but had been transformed for peace. Stone worked alongside Miller's team, explaining the ship's systems. "The primary drive damage came from pushing too hard through unstable space. We were trying to draw something away from populated areas." Miller looked up from his work. "Draw what away?" Before Stone could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Captain Gray's voice came over the intercom, tension evident in his words. "All hands, battle stations. Engineer Stone, status of the drive systems." Stone rushed to a nearby console, his face paling at the readings. "Sir, we've got quantum distortions forming. The same signature that followed us through the last 3 jumps." In the observation room, Gray turned to the Alliance leaders, his expression grim. "And now you'll learn the real reason we came to your system. We weren't running random patrols. We were leading something away from populated space, something that's been hunting us, hunting anyone it finds. and now it's found us again. The Alliance station's sensors lit up with new warnings as space itself seemed to tear open. The quantum distortion grew larger, its edges crackling with dark energy. Captain Gray and the Alliance leaders watched from the Thunder's command center as the first enemy ships emerged. They looked wrong. Their hulls were a mess of organic and mechanical parts, twisted together in ways that defied natural law. These were the ships of the swarm, a machine intelligence that consumed everything in its path, turning captured ships and crews into more of itself. That's what you were running from. Palmer's voice was barely a whisper as more swarm ships appeared. What are they? We call them the Swarm, Gray answered, his voice hard. They appeared in the outer sectors 3 months ago. They don't communicate. They don't negotiate. They just consume and convert. We've been leading them away from populated systems, trying to find a way to stop them. The Thunder's bridge came alive with activity as crew members rushed to their stations. First Officer Rivers coordinated with the engine room, where Stone and the Alliance engineers worked frantically to complete the critical repairs. Multiple contacts, Rivers reported, counting 12 swarm vessels with more emerging. They're already beginning their attack pattern. The first swarm ship launched its assault, firing strange energy weapons that seemed to eat through normal space. The Alliance defense platforms returned fire, but their weapons barely scratched the twisted hulls. The swarm ships moved with unnatural coordination, spreading out to surround the station. Get your people out of here, Gray ordered, turning to Palmer and Banks. The Thunder will cover your evacuation. We've fought them before. We know their weaknesses. Banks shook his head. This is our system. We won't abandon it. He activated his comm unit, calling to all Alliance ships in range. This is Defense Commander Banks. All combat vessels, form up on the Thunder. We follow their lead. In engineering, Stone and Miller's team had just finished the emergency repairs to the drive system. The Alliance engineers had worked miracles, their different approaches to technology helping them solve problems that had stumped both sides alone. Drive systems at 70%. Stone reported through the comm. It's not pretty, but it'll hold. Gray nodded, studying the tactical display. The swarm ships were moving into an attack formation he'd seen before. They always attacked the same way. Their machine minds couldn't comprehend true tactical innovation. That was their weakness. All Alliance ships. Gray broadcast, the swarm relies on predictable attack patterns. They'll try to surround and isolate targets. We can use that against them. He quickly outlined his plan, showing how to turn the swarm's rigid tactics into a trap. The space around the station erupted in battle. Alliance ships, though smaller and less powerful than the Thunder, proved more agile. They darted between the swarm vessels, drawing their fire while the Thunder's massive bulk provided cover and support. Rivers watched the tactical display with growing hope. The Alliance ships were learning quickly, adapting to work with the Thunder's movements. The swarm, for all its technological horror, couldn't adapt to the changing battle patterns. Sir, Rivers called out, the swarm ships are shifting formation. They're trying to compensate, but their programming can't handle the randomness of our attack. Gray allowed himself a small smile. The Alliance ships were performing better than he'd hoped, their crews showing remarkable courage and skill. Together, they were doing what neither fleet could do alone. They were winning. But in the midst of the battle, the sensors detected more quantum distortions forming. The swarm was calling for reinforcements. As new enemy ships began to emerge from the tiers in space, Gray knew they needed to end this quickly. The Thunder's newly repaired systems wouldn't hold forever, and the Alliance fleet, brave as they were, couldn't sustain a prolonged battle. All ships, Gray commanded, his voice carrying across all channels, prepared to execute Attack Pattern Delta. It's time to show these machines why organic life always wins. The Thunder's engines roared to full power as they prepared for their most dangerous maneuver yet. The Thunder's massive engines pulsed with power as it led the combined fleet against the swarm. The Alliance ships followed in perfect formation, having quickly learned to trust the human crew's experience. On the bridge, Captain Gray watched as First Officer Rivers coordinated their forces with a skill that impressed even the Alliance military leaders. "The swarm ships are adapting," Rivers reported, her hands moving swiftly over the tactical controls. "They're trying to copy our attack patterns, but their machine learning is too slow. They can't match organic intuition." Defense Commander Banks stood beside Gray, watching the battle unfold. Hours ago, he had feared the human warship would destroy them. Now he was witnessing firsthand why humans had earned their reputation, not just for their fighting skills, but for their ability to lead and protect. "Your crew handles combat like a dance," Banks observed as another wave of swarm ships failed to break their formation. "Every move has a purpose, every retreat sets up the next attack." Gray nodded, his eyes fixed on the main display. "We learned the hard way that raw power isn't enough. It's about coordination, adaptation, and trust." He turned to Banks. "Your ships are proving that right now. They're fighting alongside us like we've trained together for years." In engineering, Stone and Miller worked side by side, their earlier suspicions forgotten as they fought to keep the Thunder systems running. The Alliance engineer had proven to be brilliant at improvising solutions, combining their technology with human engineering in ways neither side had considered before. "The power coupling is failing again," Miller called out, his hands deep in the ship's systems. "The swarm weapons are affecting our shield harmonics in ways we've never seen." Stone grabbed a repair kit and rushed over. "Then we'll try something they've never seen either. Your crystalline power matrices. Can they handle quantum feedback?" Miller's eyes widened as he understood Stone's plan. They were never designed for that. But yes, theoretically, they could amplify the shield frequency. It's crazy enough to work. Above them, the battle continued to rage. The swarm had brought in more ships, their twisted forms filling the space around the station. But with each passing minute, the combined human alliance fleet grew more coordinated, more effective. They weren't just surviving. They were pushing the enemy back. Council Leader Palmer watched from the station's command center, monitoring communications between the ships. The change in her people was remarkable. The fear of humans that had dominated their culture for generations was being replaced by respect and admiration. "All ships, new attack pattern." Rivers' voice came over the comm. "The swarm is trying to predict our movements. Let's show them why that's impossible." She quickly outlined a complex series of maneuvers that seemed chaotic at first glance, but revealed an underlying brilliance. The Alliance ships responded immediately, falling into the new pattern without hesitation. The swarm ships, programmed to find and exploit patterns, found themselves caught in a trap of their own making. They couldn't process the seemingly random movements that actually formed a perfect battle strategy. "This is why the swarm can never truly defeat organic life," Gray explained to Banks and Palmer. "They see our emotions as weakness, our differences as flaws. But those are our greatest strengths. Every species in your fleet fights differently, thinks differently. Together, we're unpredictable." A massive explosion lit up space as one of the swarm ships fell to the combined fire of 3 Alliance vessels. The cheer that went up over the comm channels brought a smile to even Gray's serious face. His crew had spent weeks running from these monsters, trying to protect populated systems. Now, finally, they had found allies who could help them fight back. "Captain," Stone's voice came over the comm, excitement clear in his tone. "Miller and I have something. We found a way to modify the Thunder shields using Alliance technology. If it works, we might be able to create a feedback pulse that could disrupt the swarm's neural network." Gray exchanged looks with Banks and Palmer. A plan was forming, one that would require perfect trust between humans and the Alliance. As he began to outline the strategy, Gray realized that the legends of humanity's warlike nature had gotten one thing right. Humans were indeed the most dangerous species in known space, not because they were violent, but because they could turn enemies into allies, fear into cooperation, and desperation into hope. The plan was dangerous, maybe even crazy, but it was their best chance. The Thunder hung in space, its battle-scarred hull reflecting the light of nearby explosions as the Alliance fleet drew the swarm ships into position. In engineering, Stone and Miller worked frantically to modify the shield systems, combining human and Alliance technology in ways never attempted before. Power levels are far beyond safety limits, Miller warned, his hands dancing over the controls. The shield matrix wasn't designed to channel this much energy. Stone nodded grimly. Nothing on this ship was designed for what we're about to do. But it's our only shot. He looked at the redouts, watching as power levels climbed higher and higher. The Thunder's tough. She'll hold together. On the bridge, Captain Gray and First Officer Rivers coordinated with the Alliance fleet. The swarm ships had taken their bait, moving to surround the Thunder just as planned. They thought they had trapped the human warship. They were wrong. All Alliance ships, fall back to safe distance, Gray ordered. Maintain harassment fire. Keep them focused on us. He turned to Rivers. Status of the shield modifications. Engineering reports ready, she replied. But sir, if this doesn't work, we'll be defenseless. The power drain will leave us completely exposed. Gray's eyes remained fixed on the tactical display. Sometimes the best defense is making sure there's no enemy left to fight. He opened a channel to engineering. Stone, Miller, start the sequence. The Thunder's shields began to pulse with strange energy. The combination of human quantum technology and Alliance crystal matrices created waves of power never seen before. The swarm ships, sensing the energy buildup, increased their attack, but they didn't retreat. Their programming wouldn't let them back down from what they saw as wounded prey. Shield power at maximum, Stone reported, his voice tense. Crystal matrices are already showing stress fractures. We got one shot at this. Defense Commander Banks watched from the Alliance command ship, his crew silent as they waited. The Thunder looked small now, surrounded by the twisted shapes of swarm vessels. But appearances could be deceiving. Energy spike. Rivers called out. Shield harmonics reaching critical levels. Initiating pulse in 3, 2, 1. The Thunder's shields exploded outward in a wave of pure energy. The pulse moved faster than light, carrying with it a combination of quantum disruption and crystalline resonance that tore through the swarm's neural network. The first ring of enemy ships literally came apart, their hybrid organic-mechanical systems unable to handle the overload. But the Thunder wasn't finished. As the first wave of ships fell, the pulse continued outward, growing stronger as it fed on the energy of each destroyed vessel. The swarm ships tried to retreat, but for the first time, their perfect coordination worked against them. Connected by their shared network, they couldn't escape the cascade failure. Inside the Thunder, systems screamed in protest. Panels exploded in showers of sparks as power conduits overloaded. Stone and Miller fought to keep the ship together, their earlier rivalry forgotten in the desperate struggle to survive. Hull integrity failing. Rivers shouted over the noise of failing systems. Power grid is collapsing. Engineering reports total shield failure. Gray held onto his command chair as the ship shuddered. Hold together, he whispered, though whether he was talking to his ship or his crew, even he wasn't sure. Just hold together a little longer. The Alliance fleet watched in awe as the pulse finally faded. Where there had been dozens of swarm ships, now there was only debris. The Thunder floated in the middle of the destruction, its hull dark and scarred, but intact. For a moment, there was total silence across all comm channels. Then cheers erupted from every Alliance ship. They had done it. Together, they had achieved what neither humans nor the Alliance could have done alone. They had proven that the combination of human determination and Alliance innovation was more powerful than any enemy's technology. The Thunder's emergency lights flickered on, casting a dim red glow across the bridge. Systems slowly came back online as the backup power kicked in. Gray looked at his crew, seeing exhaustion and pride on every face. Damage report, he asked. though he could guess the answer. Rivers managed a tired smile. "Everything's damaged, sir, but we're alive. The swarm is gone, and we're alive." Outside, Alliance ships moved in to assist, their crews already preparing to help repair the damaged human vessel. The fear that had greeted the Thunder's arrival was gone, replaced by something far more valuable: trust, respect, and the beginning of a true alliance. 3 days after the battle, the Thunder floated in the Alliance repair dock, its hull bearing fresh welds and patches. The once fearsome warship now served as the center of unprecedented cooperation between humans and the Alliance. Engineers from both sides worked together, sharing knowledge and stories as they repaired the damage from their shared victory. In the station's main conference room, Captain Gray sat with Council Leader Palmer and Defense Commander Banks, discussing the future. The room's large viewport showed the constant flow of ships bringing supplies and personnel to help with the repairs. Each vessel that passed gave a respectful signal to the Thunder, no longer out of fear, but gratitude. "The shield pulse technology you and Miller developed," Palmer said, looking at the technical readouts. "It could revolutionize our defensive capabilities, not just against the swarm, but against any threat to peaceful space." Gray nodded. "That's what happens when different species work together. We see solutions that neither side could find alone." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "The Thunder isn't just a warship anymore. She's proof that our peoples can build something better together." Down in engineering, Stone and Miller were finishing the last major repairs. The Alliance engineer had insisted on helping rebuild the systems he had helped modify for the battle. Around them, mixed teams of human and Alliance crew members worked in perfect harmony, their earlier suspicions forgotten. "You know," Miller said, closing a repaired panel, "when your ship first appeared in our system, we thought it was the end of everything we knew. Turns out it was just the beginning." Stone smiled, handing him a tool. "Funny how things work out. We came here running from an enemy, found friends instead." He looked around the engine room. "The Thunders never run better. Your crystal technology, combined with our quantum systems, it's something entirely new." First Officer Rivers entered engineering, carrying reports from both human and Alliance command. The sight of the two species working together still amazed her. "Stone, Miller, the captain wants your final report. But first, you should see this." She handed them a data pad showing long-range sensor readings. The swarm's neural network had been completely destroyed. Their remaining ships across multiple sectors had shut down, their hybrid systems unable to function without the central coordination. The feedback pulse had done more than win a battle. It had ended the war. In the station's observation deck, Officer Reed stood at his old post, watching the space where the Thunder had first appeared. The sensors that had once triggered panic now showed something very different. Ships from both human and Alliance worlds arriving to establish permanent diplomatic relations. "Hard to believe it was only a week ago," Banks said, joining him at the viewport. "When that warship jumped in, we thought we were seeing our worst nightmare. Instead, we found our strongest allies." Reed's antennae twitched in agreement. The old stories about humans weren't exactly wrong. They are the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. He watched as another diplomatic vessel arrived, but not for the reasons we thought. They're dangerous because they can turn enemies into friends, fear into trust. Back in the conference room, Gray finished outlining his proposal. "The Thunder and her sister ships were built for war, but we kept them to remember and protect. Now we have a chance to give them a new purpose." He looked at Palmer and Banks. "Joint crews, shared technology, combined training. We can turn these old warships into symbols of cooperation." Palmer smiled. "From weapons of war to guardians of peace. Your ship's arrival may have scared us at first, Captain, but it might be the best thing that ever happened to this sector of space." As if to emphasize her words, the Thunder's running lights came back on, fully restored. The great ship's hull gleamed under the station's lights, its fresh repairs barely visible. But the changes went far deeper than mere surface repairs. Inside her halls, Two different species worked together, learning from each other, building something new. The legends of humanity's warlike nature didn't fade away. They evolved. Now the stories told of humans' incredible ability to adapt, to protect, to turn ancient weapons into tools of peace. The thunder remained a symbol of human military might, but it stood for something far more powerful: the strength that comes from turning fear into understanding and old enemies into new allies. As Gray looked out at his ship, he remembered the panic their arrival had caused. Sometimes, he realized, the most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't a weapon or an enemy. It was an idea. The idea that different species could work together, that old fears could be overcome, and that the future could be better than the past.